Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to all of you. Those of you gathered in this sanctuary and those of you watching remotely. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton. My name is Reverend Krista Taves, and it is my privilege to serve as the minister of this fine congregation. My pronouns are she, her. I also want to welcome the Elliott Chapel Youth Group is here with their adult advisors. Let's give them a... Oops. You know what's happening? How's that? Is that better? I think it was hitting my collar. No, it's not. Let me see. Is that better? Or do we have no sound? I see. Okay. So I also wanted to say, to welcome the Elliott Chapel Youth Group here. So glad you'd be with us, and also their adult advisors. It's just really nice to have you here. In this congregation, we are people of all ages, many backgrounds, and many beliefs. We are people of diverse orientations, identifications, family structures, identities, and income levels. We try to be brave and curious. We like to think, but we also like to do. We strive to create spirituality and community beyond boundaries and beyond these walls. We are working for more justice and more love in our own lives and in the world. If you're visiting, a very special welcome to you. There are many things you could be doing on this beautiful, blustery Sunday morning, and you've chosen to be with us, and we thank you for that. I hope that your time with us will be meaningful, that you are warmly welcomed, and that we will see you again. Please be sure to sign the guest book before you leave. And if you're visiting online, we'd love to personally welcome you as well. Please let us know you're here by emailing firstuutalton@outlook.com. I guess we'll just keep going. All right. Well, it's hymn time anyway, so I don't have to talk anymore right now. So I would invite you to rise as you do. Wait a minute. Sorry. I'm getting confused now because of the sound. We have a prelude. So thank you, Joy, for this. To find, and I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you home when hope is hard. Is back on? All right. Is that better? Very good. All right. We have our Time for All Ages. I'm going to read it from up here so that everybody can see the pictures. Can you see the pictures back there? If anybody can't see it, you can sure come closer up to make sure you can see the pictures. This is a story called Nobody Hugs a Cactus. Because really, who wants to hug a cactus, right? There we go. Nobody hugs a cactus. Hank lived in a pot. The pot sat in a window. The window looked out at the empty desert. It was hot, dry, peaceful, and quiet, just the way Hank liked it. But every now and then, somebody would interrupt Hank's peace and quiet. "Hi, Hank," Rosie the tumbleweed called out. "Isn't it a beautiful day?" Hank ignored her. He just wanted to be left alone. "Okay, so long," said Rosie cheerfully as she tumbled away, and Hank was happy again. But just as he was beginning to relax, "Hello," shouted a tortoise. "Private property," yelled Hank. "Keep out." The tortoise was so frightened he hid in his shell. Hank was still yelling at the tortoise when a jackrabbit dashed by. "Hiya, Prickles," she shouted. "My name isn't Prickles," Hank yelled back, "and stay out of my yard." "Tumbleweed, tortoise, jackrabbits, what's next?" said Hank. A coyote came loping by. "No dogs allowed," Hank yelled. "I'm not a dog," said the coyote, "and you are as prickly on the inside as you are on the outside." Before Hank could yell back at the coyote, a cowboy strode past. "Keep off the grass," shouted Hank. "What grass?" said the cowboy. "We're in a desert." "Seems to me somebody needs a hug." "Too bad nobody hugs a cactus." "Hi," said a lizard. "Who invited you?" said Hank. "And just in case you're wondering, I don't want a hug." "That's good," said the lizard, "because I don't want to give you one." And then the lizard skittered away. An owl landed on the roof. "If you're looking for a hug," said Hank, "well, I guess I could give you one." "Who, me?" said the owl. "You must be joking." And for the first time, Hank began to feel a little lonely. The next morning, Hank was feeling more sad on the inside than prickly. Maybe a hug wouldn't be so bad after all. The wind began to pick up. An old cup blew by, and it stuck to Hank's face. His arm was too short to get it off. "Great," said Hank. After a while, Rosie came bouncing by. "I'll get it off you, Hank," she shouted, and she jumped up to knock the cup off Hank's face. And then she tumbled away. Hank didn't have time to thank Rosie. He felt bad about all the other times he had been so rude to her. So he came up with a plan. Hank decided to grow the best flower he could and then give it to Rosie as a thank you gift. It took days, but at last it was ready. He couldn't wait for Rosie to pass by again. When at last she finally did come bouncing back, Hank held out the flower. "Look, Rosie," he said, "I grew it just for you." Rosie was so surprised she jumped up and gave Hank a great big hug. It felt so nice, Hank didn't want to let go. And as things turned out, he couldn't. Rosie and Hank had become stuck together. But they didn't care. After all, it's better to be stuck in a hug than stuck all alone. And that's the end of the story. Thank you, Mona. I'm glad you liked it. We are a caring community where we share the joys which lift our hearts and the sorrows which give us pain. As part of our worship service, we take time for the expression of the joys, sorrows, and concerns that we carry in our hearts. There are stones at the back and here up front. When the music begins, you're invited to come forward as you wish We go up this aisle, and then we come down this one, and then go back to our seats. So take a stone to represent what is ever in your heart or thoughts, and then drop the stone into this bowl of water, a symbol that your joy or sorrow is now held in the crucible of this beloved community. If you have mobility issues, please raise your hand, and we will get a stone for you. If you're watching from home, you are welcome to drop a stone into water. Let us begin. May the joys and sorrows represented by these stones be held in the crucible of this beloved community, and may you know that you are not alone. Our reading today is a poem called "It Is All Very Well" by Reverend Rod Richards. It is all very well to speak of an interdependent web of all life and remind us that we are all connected. We are. But there are times when the loneliness strikes so deeply that the only thing of which I am certain is that I am a solitary being. There are times when the only piece of belonging I can feel is the longing. There are times when the interdependent web feels just like a mess of cobwebs. In a basement or an attic of the abandoned house where I live, times when the spirit of life and love are just words written in invisible ink on a postcard to myself. Wish you were here. Be with me now. Don't try to talk me out of how I feel with perfect theology. Stay beside me and carry my hope until I am ready to hold it again and be there for you. Please remain seated for our next hymn, We are not our own. So I will have to admit that I was unprepared for the emotions that I felt upon the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I grew up singing both O Canada and God Save the Queen in school. Her picture graced the walls of every classroom, every public library, the post office, every government office, the seminary I attended, the $20 bill, all our coins since she came to the throne in the 1950s. For generations, her image told us, at least those of us who are English Canadian, who we were and what we belonged to. I am fascinated by the royal family, even though I know it is an out-of-date, antiquated, obsolete, really expensive, undemocratic institution. I'm fascinated. The history, the castles, the servants, the clothing, the horses, the traditions, the formality, the jewels, and the crowns. There's something timeless and comforting about the monarchy, at least for me. I know that feeling is not shared by others, and legitimately so, because of the harm done by the British Empire. Just a day before Queen Elizabeth died, my partner and I finished rewatching season 4 of The Crown to get ready for season 5. I don't think I'm the only one here who's a fan of The Crown. And the core theme of this series, the whole series, is the expectations, the system, or as Princess Diana called it, the firm, that is hardwired to result in loneliness. There is a deep valuing of restraint, sacrifice, and duty, none of which are bad in and of themselves. They can be good practices to nurture until they tear you to pieces, until they result in prickly people who struggle to give and receive love. So we ache for Princess Margaret when the man she loves is deemed unsuitable for the sister of the Queen and is sent away. It is said that Prince Charles wept on his wedding night, having forced himself to marry a woman he would never love
for the sake of the monarchy. He and Margaret belonged to the tradition. They believed in the tradition, tried to fulfill the tradition, but the kind of belonging expected of them broke their hearts and their spirits. And we see this happening over and over again to each member of the royal family. This morning, we're talking about belonging, that profound human need that lives and has power within each of us. We are deeply social species. We literally need to belong somewhere to survive. And yet all of us are broken in ways that can make it hard to trust, which makes it hard to belong, because belonging and trust are intimately related. There are 3 points of truths about belonging, true belonging, that I want us to hold on to this morning. First, belonging asks us to explore deeply and authentically who we are. Belonging begins with accepting our true selves. Only then do we have the ability to belong fully in community with others. Secondly, we deepen in our experience and ability to belong by offering each other the space to find belonging. We become sanctuaries of belonging for each other in a shared journey of openness and authenticity. And finally, we lift up that question of what is it like for us to belong to something that is greater than ourselves? What is it like to belong to the world, to the universe, to all that is? The larger our sense of belonging, the more open we become to what is in front of us. The more we grow, become more whole, interconnected, and continuously transformed. So today we are exploring what can stand in the way between us and true belonging. The promises of belonging are many, and our yearning for belonging is always there. And just like the royals, there are ways that we belong to systems that make it harder to accept the belonging that is offered, harder to trust the spaces made for us. These systems are also hardwired for loneliness, for keeping us apart from each other, and often keep us from stepping through the yearning for belonging and toward the experience of belonging. There's a part of all of us that is like the cactus in our children's story, all prickly and grouchy, self-protective, fearful, and distrustful. Let me give you an example of a system in the St. Louis region that is hardwired for loneliness. What is the most common question that people who grew up around here ask each other when they first meet? Well, where did you go to high school, right? Where did you go to high school? That question pops up all the time. And what is this question about? First, it's about finding out if you're from here, and those of us who aren't from here know that if it really matters if you aren't from here. Who's not from here? All right, a whole lot of us are not from here, so we can't even answer that question. Interesting fact, no one has never asked me what high school I went to. So maybe it's because I use those well-known Canadian abouts and sorries, right? And I have this bad habit of pronouncing all the St. Louis area French names like they're French. So Gravois, not Gravois, right? Lafayette, not Lafayette. Or how about Portage de Sioux instead of Portage de Sioux? Right? Where are you from? No, I don't get asked that question. We never get to that question. But if you pass the test, then it's about placing you, identifying how you matter, and if you matter, and whether you and the other person matter in the same way. There's a set of assumptions if you went to Alton High or Marquette, right? Or Kirkwood or Ladue or De Smet, right? Edwardsville High, or Metro East Lutheran High, Normandy High, or the recently opened Leadership Charter School in Pagedale. And we all know I could go on and on and on. Where you go to high school is actually code for your class, your race, your religion, if you went to community college or a 4-year college, what kind of job you might have, your income potential, your political leanings, and more. You're trying to figure out if you are in each other's circles. Then you know what you can be to each other. It tells you if you belong together, and more importantly, if you don't. Let me give you an example of a story that I heard. So a woman I know went to New York City and was invited to a party and found out there was someone else from St. Louis there. And so he asked, "Where did you go to high school?" She said, "Where did you go to high school?" He said, "Ladue." And she said, "Maplewood." And he turned around and walked away and wouldn't talk to her the rest of the evening. Right? So this question, it is a way of ranking people, seeing where you fall in the social order in relation to the person you are talking to. Now, lest you think I'm judging you, I am not. We all ask this question. We asked it where I grew up. The need for us to belong and how to know how we belong is normal. We have this need from the time we are born. We really need to know that we belong somewhere. In fact, it is one of the first tasks as a newborn to know that you belong, to have the safety and security of a parent that is always, always, always there. If you don't have that, then you will have challenges later on feeling like you belong. It starts that soon. But just like with the royal family, this whole high school question, there's an aspect of this practice that hardwires us for loneliness. The question rebuilds and reinforces the walls that separate us and make them seem normal. We have this need from the time we are born. We really need to know that we belong somewhere. And this question is meant to keep us from crossing the lines that nobody had to explain to us. We just felt them. The high school question protects what is. The people in power stay in power. The people that aren't stay that way. And the people in the middle, which is almost everyone else, fights to keep their place or to move up. And that sets us up for systemic loneliness. The kind of loneliness that isn't held in just one person. It's held in our whole society. Now, just so it doesn't look like I'm picking on St. Louisans, we know this happens everywhere, right? It doesn't matter what state, what city you live in. This is the legacy we live with, and it's also the legacy that lives in us. And the technical term for this is internalized white supremacy. But put in more simple terms, this legacy of division depends on creating fearful, contained people. We are supposed to stay on our side of the line and protect that line if it is crossed. And this dynamic is one reason that loneliness is endemic in this country. We are implicitly taught to distrust each other, that you have to hold tight to what you have or it will be taken away. And if someone crosses that line, you are in danger, or your children are in danger. Like neighborhood watch societies, often that's what it does. It keeps people in their place. And as long as this division exists, there's always going to be a part of us that is empty and fearful and capable of harm. Now, I can appreciate that this might be a new way to think about a question that looks and feels so natural. The high school question, which on the outside looks all about belonging, actually sabotages our chance to know each other, care about each other, love each other, and yearn for each other's freedom and well-being. Many of you will remember what happened in our region 8 years ago. It's hard to believe it's been 8 years since Michael Brown, a young black man from Ferguson, was shot by a white police officer. It was like a match struck dried kindling. That mix of resentment and fear built up in the black community over decades could no longer be restrained. The streets were on fire. And the Unitarian Universalist ministers in this area, we all wanted to give our support to this movement. We knew we wouldn't be living our principles if we held back. And we knew it would mean crossing lines that are rarely named but intimately known. We learned of a clergy meeting in Florissant, and we decided to go. When we arrived, it was clear that we were guests in someone else's home. We had no relationships with clergy outside of our familiar circles. We didn't know the dynamics between black clergy in St. Louis. The black clergy didn't know the dynamics between the white clergy in St. Louis. We were like two solitudes. And there was tension between the rabbis and the black clergy because some black activists feel kinship with the Palestinians, seeing a shared experience of occupation. We held meeting after meeting to do something, and we got stuck. Everyone was out of their comfort zones, well past the lines that no one had to teach us. We didn't have time to build trust, didn't have the time to build a sense of belonging, all of us fighting against the inner feelings that we had crossed the line, all of us trying to manage our collective loneliness. To use a metaphor of our children's story, we were trying not to be prickly cactuses who nonetheless kept sabotaging the things we tried to do. We were trying to grow flowers in the desert, and it was much harder than we expected. And I will be honest and say that coming home from those meetings, I would feel a sense of relief when I hit 270 and Page, because I was back in West County on my side of the line with mostly white middle-class people, and the people I served who were mostly white middle-class Unitarian Universalists. It was hard to see this. I didn't want it to be true. I'm reminded of our poem this morning by Reverend Rod Richards. It is all very well to speak of an interdependent web of all life and remind us that we are all connected. We are. But there are times when the loneliness strikes so deeply that the only thing of which I am certain is that I am a solitary being. There are times when the only piece of belonging I can feel is the longing. There are times when the interdependent web just feels like a mess of cobwebs. Where I came to, as I kept driving to North County and breathing a sigh of relief when I drove home, is that I needed to keep crossing the line, even when it became discouraging, even when it felt like nothing was happening. There was simply too much at stake. Perhaps you've heard that it's not easy being a Unitarian Universalist because it means opening yourself to growth. And growth always means losing something. Sometimes that loss is a comfort zone that we have seen as a birthright. If we want to be blessed with true belonging, which means true authenticity and true inclusion, it is going to ask us to sacrifice something, because authentic relationships and deep belonging are messy and invite us to welcome a larger degree of vulnerability than we are used to. Belonging is not something that's handed to you and you say, "Yay, I've arrived at belonging." Belonging is something we choose over and over. And how we choose to belong always has a moral dimension. So we're always asking ourselves, does our search for belonging small up our world, or does it connect us in a wider way? In Unitarian Universalism, we commit ourselves to the wider way. And that's why being a Unitarian Universalist is not easy. This is what I love about our children's story. It's a story about unwiring systems that keep us lonely. As different animals walk by the cactus, he pushes them away, and their reactions give us different ways to respond to prickliness. The tumbleweed laughs and keeps tumbling. The tortoise hides in his shell but keeps close. The jackrabbit gives him a nickname. The coyote offers a mirror to show the cactus who he is becoming. And the cowboy flat out says he needs a hug. They were authentic to themselves, each one of them, and gave him space until his own loneliness moved him to make a different choice, to choose the wider way. He then grew a flower and waited for his chance to say yes next time someone came by. So going back to the Queen, which is where we started, I did get up at 4:30 a.m. on Monday, September 19th, and I was glued to the TV until 11 a.m. when it all ended, captured by the legacy of an institution that is obsolete, anti-democratic, and so often dims the spirits of those within it. But this is what gives me hope. Prince Charles, now King Charles III, was finally able to marry the woman that he's loved all of his life and should have married in the first place. She's now Queen Consort at his side as he assumes his new responsibilities. They always belonged to each other. It's too bad it took so much pain and sorrow for that to happen. But they waited and gradually found their way in that hardwired system, unknotting some of it so that they could belong to it in a way that their undying love for each other made them belong in the highest sense of being. And my hope for all of us is that we too can give ourselves to belonging, the kind of belonging that grows a flower in a desert, that heals and binds and restores. I pray that it can happen in our hearts as we release to our authentic selves, that it can happen in our most intimate and close relationships, that it can happen in our communities and the larger world as we strive to be part of justice making and justice receiving. So wherever it's happening in your life, keep going, keep choosing to belong, and keep opening space for others to belong. We may just be saving the world and each other. Thank you. So our closing hymn is Country Road, Take Me Home by John Denver, because that's really what we're talking about today, is coming home. Louder until it's on. There it's on. I don't want to talk louder anymore. All right, so Election Day is coming, Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. John Herndon, who's right there, who played the guitar, is coordinating our congregation's participation in the nationwide UU the Vote campaign. This is in collaboration with the Illinois UU Advocacy Network. We need 3 people to volunteer to each write 10 postcards, or 6 people to write 5 postcards to registered voters in Alton who voted in 2020 but not in 2021. We already have 1 member who has taken 20 postcards from our stack of 50 postcards. This is a nonpartisan campaign to encourage people to vote and letting them know what some of the issues are in Illinois, such as workers' rights, justice for immigrants, criminal justice reform, and reproductive rights. The postcards, the list of names, a script, and stamps are out on a table in the fellowship hall. Another announcement is that I will be hosting another Post Commons coffee hangout on Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. There's no sign up needed. Just show up. I'll be there at a large enough table, hopefully, for whoever comes with my coffee, waiting to have a good conversation with you. There's also a potluck after the service today, and wanted to let you know that there's also a meeting. So our schedule is to have potluck until like 11:25. Don't worry about the dishes. Come in here at 11:30 for our meeting. Hopefully we'll be done in like before 1 o'clock, and then we'll all help clean up the dishes afterwards. So nobody has to think they have to do dishes while we're holding a meeting, okay? 11:40, never mind, yes. 11:40, 11:40. So basically we eat till 11:30 and then get ourselves in here at 11:40. Yes.
Just updating you on Fourth Saturday. Yesterday we served 27 people to represent a total of 57 people in their households with personal care items as well as household cleaning items. This remains a very important program that we provide for our community. So just want to encourage you, if you're able to give on the Givelify app, you can donate directly to Fourth Saturday. And please, if you'd like to volunteer and come and help, the next one will be November. I don't have the date offhand. If anybody has the date, they can look on their calendar. We'll be doing it again Fourth Saturday, and we welcome anybody that wants to contribute. Thank you.
Are there any other announcements? Yes, Nancy. So just to repeat for those who couldn't hear, Unity, we received a card from the Unity, Edwardsville Unity Fest, thanking us for participating in that event and that it wouldn't have been the same without us there. Peg Flack organized our participation. That is correct. Yes, that is correct. Anyone else before we move to our chalice lighting? Chalice extinguishing, pardon me. All right. Stewardship. I think my notes are wrong. I apologize. I'm getting you, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I have the order that they happen in Elliott. So my apologies. Let's do the offering, please. Thank you for your generosity to this congregation. We bless this offering to the good work that will come from it. Our closing words are by John O'Donohue. May the frames of your belonging be large enough for the dreams of your soul. May you know the eternal longing which lives at the heart of time. May you allow the wild beauty of the invisible world to gather you, mind you, and embrace you in belonging. Please join with me in the extinguishing of our chalice. The light of truth and the meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Please stay seated for the postlude. Thank you for being here. Go in peace.